Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Talking Success. I'm Monty Wolf, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Cathy Hartigan, principal of Hartigan Power Equipment. The interesting thing about Hartigan Power Equipment is they provide sales and engineering support for power equipment in the electrical energy industry. Now, that's a mouthful, and I don't 100% understand it, and so I am so excited that Cathy Hartigan is here today to explain a little bit more and tell us about her entrepreneurial journey. Cathy, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. You?
Oh, I'm enjoying the Colorado weather. I'm excited that it's already September and
I'm ready for the fall.
oh my gosh, yes. Although I am happy that I'm seeing Halloween stuff as opposed to Christmas stuff.
Yes, me too. Halloween still seems even a little early, but
I'll see you on that. Absolutely. So, Cathy, I know I kind of gave a very thin description of what it is you do. Could you expand upon what your business really is and what it looks like today?
So Hartigan Power Equipment is actually, we're a manufacturer's representative, which means that we contract with manufacturers of equipment, in our instance, equipment that goes into the utility industry. We contract with them to be basically their sales force in a particular sales area. When we started, we were Colorado and Wyoming. So for the states of Colorado and Wyoming, we have contracts in place with major manufacturers in the utility industry, making products, everything from transformers to wire to cable, switches, all the products that take the electric energy from a power plant to your house. So basically all of that type of equipment. We have about 16 lines that we represent currently, in all various aspects of that particular system.
So you have equipment that gets the energy to places, and because you mentioned power plants, I mean, is it so it's big scale and small scale, or is it just primarily larger scale?
It's large scale and small scale. We go everywhere from the major equipment in a power plant to the transmission lines that bring it out of the power plant to the substations that then step it down to a voltage that then can be distributed to your business or your home, all the way up to the meter on the house.
So you're a sales and engineering service provider. Is that what I'm hearing?
We're primarily sales, but myself and my primary sales engineer, Matt Oliver, we are both engineers by degree. I'm an electrical engineer. He's a mechanical engineer. So it's very important for us because we're selling very often quite complex equipment to really be able to understand the application, where the product is going, to be able to sit down with the engineers who are designing the system and help them get the right equipment for the project that they're working on.
So you're kind of a also education piece because of that engineering background. You can walk them through, this is what piece you need.
Yeah, so when they tell us what they're working on, they typically know what type of equipment they need, but very often they don't always understand each manufacturer's capabilities, what the product can do for them, what are the benefits, what are the advantages, can it save them money, can it save them time, how does the product perform compared to other products, that type of thing. And if they have a particular goal in mind, then it's mine or Matt's responsibility to help them pick the right equipment from our manufacturer to meet that need.
It sounds like very heavy in customer service.
Extremely.
I mean, right?
Extremely, yeah. We start everywhere from the basic design package that may come to us from an engineering firm or an end user, a customer, and we look through the entire project and we see what items we're capable of bidding. And then we pull all the specifications out for that, send it to our manufacturers, and then we work with them to come up with the best solution for the particular project. And we're sort of the go-between between the manufacturer and the engineering firm or the end user on coming up with the best product at the best price with the best deliveries, that type of thing.
So you actually work with the manufacturers as well, where you are working with them to figure out how to get the best thing for your client? Because your clients come to you, correct? Okay,
Correct.
they don't go straight to the manufacturer.
Not typically.
Okay.
Typically, I mean, some of them are familiar with our manufacturers because they're mostly major manufacturers, but we have developed the relationship with them, and they can come to us with the whole package, so we can help them with more than just one piece of it. Whereas if they just go to each manufacturer individually, they may be working with 10, 12, 15 different manufacturers, whereas they can come to us and we can help, at least on a portion of that package, eliminate all of those different interactions.
So it's, and I heard you say that you are an engineer by degree.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously that's important. Is that because I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of this type of business because one, I've never had a reason to, probably, number one. But two, I would not have thought of an engineer to have a business like this, which is probably just, you can, kind of chuckle at that or something. But, it's like, when you're in engineering school, was that something that you thought about? Was this a career that you thought would be the way to go?
Well, when I started my engineering schooling, I was going to be an engineer, and I got maybe 3 years into the process, my junior year of college, taking a lot of the engineering design courses where we actually had to build what we designed and make sure it worked, and I decided that would bore me to tears. So I started thinking, I really don't want to be an engineer, but I've already spent 3 years doing this. What do I want to do? And so I started doing a little research. What can I do with an engineering degree that doesn't involve engineering? So I found technical sales. So I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So when I graduated from college, I actually went to work for a manufacturer's rep, very similar to what I'm doing now as my own business, as a salesperson working in the utility industry. And I did that for a period of time. And then I started thinking, well, maybe I'm wasting my engineering degree. Maybe I actually need to be an engineer. And I started working for a utility company. They had an opening. The people that I was calling on, they're like, you'd be great for this position. So I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. So I went to work for a utility company. And I was there about 3.5 years and said, nope, I was right. I don't want to be an engineer. I was correct the first time. I'm going back into sales. So I left the utility company and went back into sales. At first, working for a company that was introducing product to the U.S. As their sales manager, starting up their U.S. sales division. They were based in Vienna, Austria.
Oh, wow.
So I got a lot of experience setting up a network of sales reps like myself, learning the manufacturing side of the business, how that all works, bringing product in from another country, starting from ground zero, basically no sales when we started to, when I left 3 years later, in multi-millions of dollars of sales.
So you started with that company almost like a startup? Like they had no sales?
They had no sales
because you brought
in the
it to U.S.
Yeah. They wanted to introduce the product that I was selling to the country. So I went out, created a rep network of salespeople and traveled around, trained them all, got them up to speed, and we sold product. So we went from zero sales to about $3 million in sales in a couple of years. And then it started growing and they started making money and they decided that they were going to sell it off to a bigger company.
Sure.
So at that point, I went to work for another manufacturer that's based in Dallas. They're called Megger, and they're electrical test equipment in the utility industry. So I was their Chicago salesperson for about 3.5 years. I was one of their top salespeople 2 of the 4 years that 3 or 4 years that I did it. And then they asked me if I would be interested in being a regional manager for their rep division of their network, of their sales network, because they had some areas, very, very large metro areas, they had direct salespeople, but in smaller areas like Colorado, for instance, there's probably not enough business here to support a direct salesperson with all the expenses and the overhead and benefits and all that kind of stuff. So they had certain areas like here where they had representatives. So I took on that and I was managing their rep network for about 5 years, traveling everywhere from New York to Hawaii, wherever they had reps, supporting those reps, helping them do business, figuring out, helping them figure out how to sell our product, that kind of stuff, and supporting them. And from that, I actually made my connection here in Colorado. One of the reps that I managed and worked with had an office here in Colorado, and he asked me if I knew anybody who was looking to make a change because he wanted somebody to run the office here. And I had just had my children at that point. They were very young, and I was doing a lot of traveling, so I decided I really was looking to do something that got me off the road. So I said, yeah, I might be interested. And he said, you? And I said, yeah, absolutely, me. So we talked about it, and it looked like a great opportunity for me to come out, be a partner in his business, learn the ropes from somebody who's experienced. So I went back home, talked to my husband, Paul, and he's like, well, it's really interesting, but he was in a really good job in the Chicago area where we were living, making good money. We had just built a house, a custom home.
Wow.
So he's like, I'm not sure this is the best time to make that kind of move. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. I'll let Mike know that this probably isn't going to work. And that was maybe like October of 2001. And in December of 2001, his company decided that they were going to close their Chicago operations, which is where he was employed. And they were moving everything to Austin, Texas. So,
And this is Paul.
and that was Paul, my husband. So the reason I didn't take the job was because of his gainful employment in Chicago, and now that might be going away. So they offered him the option to move to Austin. And we went and checked out the city, and I really loved Austin. But on the flight back, he said to me, he says, I'm not taking the position. I said, well, why? And he didn't feel like they really had it together to make this move and to make it last and to be able to keep on board all the people that they moved from Chicago. He said, my gut feel is that they're going to move everybody down there. We're going to be down there 18 months or so, and then they're going to start letting people go once they've acquired all the information that they need from us. He says, so I'm just going to take the severance package, which basically meant he would stay on until May, and then he would get a severance package of about 3 to 6 months salary at that point, once he helped them close down the Chicago facility. So I said, well, if you're going to be unemployed anyway, I think I need to call Mike back and see if that position is still open as his partner, because I had been looking prior to that of opening my own company anyway.
Really?
In the Chicago area, doing something similar. But it's very, very hard to start from scratch because you've got to build up the reputation. You've got to get people to hire you. You have to sign contracts with all these manufacturers. And if they don't know who you are, then it's very hard to get a line. So we investigated that. We flew out here to Colorado. And we decided probably in March to make that move. I have 2 little kids at home, about 12 months old.
Oh, man.
Not quite 12 months old. And so we started making the transition and the move. I was traveling back and forth from Chicago to Colorado for about 3 months. I would fly out on Sunday night or Monday morning, work out here, run the company, and then fly back on Friday night. And I would do that. I did that for about 3 months until we could get the house on the market, figure out what we were going to do for living accommodations, et cetera, get the house sold, that whole thing.
Logistics.
The logistics of making a move from Chicago to Colorado. So we did that, and I was partners in that organization for about 5 years and learned a lot, but being part of a larger organization, this office was struggling to make a good amount of money because he bought this office from another rep, and we were trying to bring the lines that he had down in Arizona and New Mexico into our fold in Colorado, but they already had representation here, so we were having a really hard time bringing lines on and I couldn't bring a competitive line on. That's one of our contractual rules. You can't sell more than one product of the same type.
So you're trying to build something with hands tied a little bit.
Right. So he and I sat down and I said, I really feel bootstrapped here. This territory has a ton of potential, but I can't do what I need to do to make the money. And the bulk of my compensation, obviously, was based on this office's performance. I said, so what do we want to do? Do we want to spin it off? Do we want to close it down? I'll go do something else. And mind you that, moved my entire family out here and thinking, okay, in 5 years, I'm like, okay, we're going to shut it down and be done.
Yeah.
So he looked at me and he said, why don't you just buy it from me? He's like, just
buy it from you.
Yeah. He's like, buy the Colorado office, take it from me. You run it. You do with it what you want to do. And I said, well, that really wasn't my plan. It's not like I moved out here. I've moved my husband out here. He had to find new employment. And we didn't have a whole lot of cash sitting around at that point to buy a business.
Right.
So he and I talked, and he said, well, I'll tell you what. I had a certain percentage stock in the company that he brought me out here with. That was my move package. Mm-hmm. So I basically turned over my stock to him as my down payment. And then we came up with a reasonable payment plan that would allow me to just pay him once a year for the next 8 years, 8 or 9 years, whatever the term was. So that it was an amount that I felt like I could make easily without stressing the business as I was trying to grow it. And he was accommodating with that. And we talked to all the manufacturers that we represented, that we shared. I kept every single line. They were all happy to keep me on board, even under the new management. And that's how Hartigan Power was born. So I bought the office 5 years after I came out here to be a partner in another organization.
So you had a background in sales and building from nothing, and then you just happened to do that again here in Colorado, but no idea that you were actually going to be building Hartigan Power Equipment. You didn't realize that was what you were going to build.
No, I thought I was going to be a partner in Gorman Company, which is the company I became a partner with, and he was in his early 50s, so I thought in 10 to 15 years the plan was to buy him out.
Right.
And, it would still be called Gorman Company, and I would just be the principal. But it sort of didn't work out that way.
Well, what's really interesting is here you've got this established company. You came in as a partner, basically, in sales and building, whatnot. You kept all your manufacturers?
Yeah, I did not lose a single line when we made the transition. So
that's unusual, is it not?
It's extremely unusual. Yeah, usually when manufacturers, reps split or change ownership, there is a little bit of fallout from that because manufacturers get a little nervous, or they might be thinking about making a change, and then that's sort of a catalyst for them, like, well, okay, like we're definitely making a change now. But I had built enough of a relationship with the main contacts at those manufacturers that when Mike and I approached them and said, hey, this is what we're looking at doing, are you comfortable with that? All of them said, yeah, absolutely, we're comfortable that Cathy can do this. So we're going to, let us know when it happens, and we'll just change the contracts and rewrite everything over to Hartigan Power.
But, what I find really interesting about that is that you went to the manufacturers because, a lot of companies just get blindsided. Right. There's changes going on behind closed doors, and then there's, quote, an announcement. And I think that went a really far way in your favor. Again, because of who you are as well, and just hearing your background, to have that kind of customer service and, attention to detail, because you can't have these type of relationships without having that level of detail to keep it all straight, right?
Right, exactly.
So was that, now I know you were in college, but like before you got to college, did you work in customer service? Did you work in sales?
I actually, as a high school student, I worked at McDonald's. I was a frontline person at McDonald's.
I guess that's customer service, though. Long hours, customer service.
And that many years ago, it was a completely different world than it is now in the fast food industry.
Where customer service was expected.
Right. Yeah. Now everybody just kind of assumes it's not going to happen.
Right.
And it was a McDonald's in a very small town, so you knew everybody, and it was like we were the first fast food restaurant in this town, so it was a big deal for the little town that I grew up in.
Oh my God. So, but that's amazing that because I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, or we kind of just talked about it, but that type of sales, customer service is rare, especially the bigger the company gets.
Yes.
And for you to be able to declare and create that type of reputation, I mean, it's in leaps and bounds. Kudos to you. I mean, that's amazing. And curious, were there a lot of women in the sales or even in this industry? I mean, I'm thinking it's more male dominated.
It's very male dominated. When I graduated from college with my engineering degree, I was one of 3 women out of 150 in our class.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty small percentage. And then when I got actually out into the working world, in particular in the utility industry, there were probably more women in the electronics and the software side of engineering, not so much in the utility side of engineering.
So could specify that so what do you mean by the utility side of engineering? What is that?
Power companies. Typically, that's very much a good old boy group. It has traditionally all been men. And when I started working in the utility as an engineer, there were not many women at all. Just a handful of us, and most of them not in positions of engineering or management. Most of them, administrative or that type of position. Yeah.
Did you find it easy to excel in that industry? I mean, or what would you attribute to that? Other than you being cool. I mean,
Well, there's that. But, I think a lot of it was attitude. I never really saw being a female as being an issue. I never really took offense to people who did see it as an issue. I just kind of walked past it and moved on. And I felt like my work proved itself. I never really had to stand up for any of that. I gained the respect of the people I worked with based on what I was able to do.
It's about results.
It's about results. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially in that industry, because you can, in any industry, you can excel based on what you deliver. At least it used to be,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I'd love to get back to that too, where you're rewarded because of what you bring to the table.
Right.
Not just because you're willing to sit at the table.
Right.
But
Exactly.
That's amazing. And I can see, as you're talking, I'm seeing this little graph of, okay, well, that's where, sales part. And then putting together a company. So it seems like everything that you've just told me leads to where you are now.
Yeah, and it's the weirdest thing because I look back at it and I think everything fell specifically into place during my life to put me where I'm at right now. I obviously had to work for it, but the key was I recognized the opportunities when they presented themselves to me to move and do something different or to change what I was doing or to move to the next level. And that's one of the things I still really try to focus on, even with my company now, is how do I put myself in the best position to be growing and continuing to serve my customers down the road? Because the energy industry is changing dramatically. We're going from coal-based generation to natural gas and now renewables. You've got solar and you've got wind and hydro is coming back. So there's all of these changes going on with the green push that's out there. How do we keep ourselves in front of the trends? And then we're also seeing changes in our manufacturers. It used to be manufacturers reps and manufacturers had a very, very strong, long-standing relationship. Many of the companies were privately held. The presidents of the companies knew the presidents of the reps. It was definitely a strong personal relationship. So you never really had to be concerned about necessarily losing a contract as long as you were doing your job and performing. But in today's world of all these different manufacturers buying up the smaller manufacturers and becoming bigger and bigger corporations, the management tends to change every 2 to 3 years. So you no longer really have that 15-year relationship with your manufacturer because those people change every 2 to 3 years. So it now becomes more important as a manufacturer's rep to not only focus on customer service for our customers, but I have to sell backwards up to my manufacturers as well. I have to stay in communication with them. I have to let them know what we're doing for them. I have to let them know what's going on in my market. You know, the customer service to our customer gets pushed down to my team a lot more than it used to. Every manufacturer used to have their own customer service team, their own engineering support team, their own technical support groups. And in the 2008-2009 period, when the economy really slowed down, a lot of those positions were the ones that got cut. So they were asking the reps at that point, can you help pick up the slack? You know, do you have people on staff that can do that? And we did. So we took on a lot of the customer service, tracking orders, making sure product is getting shipped on time, you know, just keeping our customers informed. Because some of the products I sell have 36, 38, 42-week lead times. So when somebody orders something, there's a long process that takes place. You have to know, you know, when the drawings are coming out, because then the engineer has to approve the drawings. And then once the drawings are approved, it has to go back to get approved for manufacturing. And there's a long process of all these milestones in the project. Our manufacturers used to handle that all themselves. And they still do have people that handle it, but most of those people are very overloaded. They have a lot going on, so it's up to my team to create a project schedule on any major equipment and just, you know, ping our manufacturer and say, hey, I know the drawings are due in 2 weeks. Are we on schedule for that?
Right.
Or do I need to let the customer know that that's running late? Or so that's a lot of the logistics that my team handles on the inside, in addition to getting quotes and answering calls and, you know, sending out information and that kind of stuff.
When you talk about looking for opportunities, you know, had you not had that customer service base as Cathy Hartigan to bring into every situation that you have, you would have suffered because, you know, all of a sudden, you know, your customer service, you know, responsibilities is thrown in your lap, and, you know, somebody who didn't have that background would have just fallen apart, because that's a juggling act right there.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. We are multitaskers extraordinaire. That's what we do.
You have to be, because if you can look at a sheet of paper for each project, and you have to understand where it is in the process and verify where it is in the process and keep everybody informed, because you're right, something this big on this scale easily falls through the crack. You kidding me? That's craziness.
Yeah.
So now, and you brought up a really interesting point that I hadn't thought about, but just the changing in manufacturing.
Yeah.
Because I can totally pick, that's how I think of manufacturing, is everybody knows everybody, they're family owned, but yeah, to know that, no, they're getting bought up, or, you know, people are changing more often and whatnot. In your mind, what has been the biggest thing that you've done in your company to be able to handle that change? Or was it did you make, you know, changes right in the middle, or was it a gradual shift to maintain that?
Probably a combination of the two. My two inside people, Kristen and Amy, came on board with me. Amy's been with me probably close to 5 years now, Kristen close to 4. As those demands became more and more and more, they actually came to me and said, hey, we have some ideas on how we can track this better, some systems we can put into place that will help us stay on top of this kind of stuff. And we talked about it, and I said, do it. You know, get the software that we need, whatever it is that you feel like will work. You guys work out a system, and then Matt and I on the outside will work within your system, because you guys are the ones who are on the phone. You know, they're there all day. They're the ones who take the calls. And if I'm traveling or Matt's traveling and something comes in on my email that needs to be handled right away, I will flip it to one of them and say, hey, can you handle this for me? I'm getting ready to get on a plane. So, my inside team is as valuable, if not more valuable, often than Matt and I on the outside.
You talk about a team, and that's so true, because to have people that will literally come to you and say, this can be done better, and to have that insight and that willingness to, it sounds funny, but to make their job easier.
Right.
But because I've worked at jobs where I've done that before, and it's been like, no, it shouldn't be that easy. Wait, what are you talking about? It's not just easy for me; it's easy for your customers.
Right.
And to have that kind of foresight, but then to create an atmosphere that they're willing and able to come to you and do that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things I'm very proud of the team I've got right now. We all work extremely well together. But we also bounce ideas off of each other, and it's a completely open door amongst any of us. If somebody has a problem or a concern with something that's going on with the company, they can come to me. Matt and I have very open communications about what's going on, what does he need, what does his customers need. The same with Amy and Kristen on the inside. What makes your job easier? What can we do to motivate you a little bit more? What do you see coming from the customers? We just had a little bit of a conversation about that at a sales meeting last week. I asked each of them to I sort of gave them a phrase and asked them to fill it in, what we do, why we do it, and how does it help our customers. And oddly, all three of them came back with very, very similar answers.
Oh, wow.
So I know
that's good.
So I know that my team is kind of all on the same page as to why we do what we do. It's not just to sell equipment. For us, the sell of the equipment is sort of the after effect. For us, it's really trying to be the resource for the customer, trying to make sure that they have a source to go to find the product that they need. And I very often get calls from customers looking for something that we don't represent. And I'll say, oh, unfortunately, that's not something that we carry, but let me direct you to somebody who does.
Resource.
Somebody else in the industry that I know will take care of you the way we do. Another rep or a manufacturer direct, whichever the case may be. But so people like that, they can just come to me and be like, hey, Cathy, I don't know if you do this or not, but I'm like, well, send me the drawings. I'll see what it is. I'll let you know if it's something we can manage or if I need to pass you off to somebody else who can. So that's really the why of why we do what we do. We want our customers' jobs to be easy. We want them to feel like they're being taken care of by our customer service. And it has paid off for us locally. And then with the options I have one of my major manufacturers asked us to expand up into Minnesota, North and South Dakota.
Oh my.
So that has been my project for the last almost year now, trying to go up there, introduce Hartigan Power to that world, get in front of customers, sell product, and generate enough money to start putting a team in place up there. So that's been my charge for the last year. Hence the reason I'm on the road a lot.
Right. Well, I was just going to ask you about, what the future holds, but I mean, but what a testament to where, people are coming to you and we love what you're doing, but we need it up here.
Yeah.
And so keeping in that vein about what's on the horizon, I'm curious, when you took over, what was the state of the company and what have you grown it to thus far?
When I first bought this office, it was very small, and it was performing, but it wasn't super profitable. So when I bought it, within 3 to 4 years, we were 5 times the volume in sales that we were 3 years previously. And our biggest year was 2009, which was the biggest portion of the economic decline. When we were in the big recession, that was my first record year.
Why? How can you?
Because
Why?
because of what you were saying, we were able to go and help customers, and during a time when they were struggling with budgets and finding projects and how do we make this work, we were able to help people find solutions that they could afford to do, and keep their projects moving forward, or give them options to do that. And just having somebody that they could call to work through stuff on projects.
Going that extra mile.
Yeah, yeah.
That always pays off.
Yeah, and at the time that I did it, I was probably in this area one of the youngest rep owners in Colorado. So I was 38 at the time, so I wasn't even 40 yet. Wow. So I was one of the youngest, and one of only 2 females. There's another female rep owner in Colorado as well. But yeah, so.
But it sounds like, because, in terms of talking to entrepreneurs, sometimes you get that, bootstrap and, I clawed my way, and, it's some kind of a struggle and whatnot. And I'm not saying it wasn't yet that any business is a struggle. It has its ups and its downs, its peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you put it great. Everything seemed to fall into place along your journey.
Yes.
And you took advantage of opportunities.
Yes. It's not that I haven't had bad years. Probably, I guess it was probably around 2015. So I had owned the company for about 6-7 years at that point. One of my major manufacturers was going through a buyout. They were getting bought by another major manufacturer, and they basically stopped paying their reps.
Oh, no.
We were still out selling. We were still selling their product and promoting it, but the commission checks weren't coming in. And there was a long line of excuses as to why that was. And always promises of it's coming. So we continued to operate for probably over a year with no commissions from my third largest manufacturer. And it was quite a large sum of money that they owed us. And being a small business, I had to make some very difficult decisions. Really, honestly, what I should have done at the time from a financial standpoint was lay people off. But I didn't feel like I could continue to grow the company if I did that. And it might cost me other manufacturers, other lines who would say, well, she doesn't have enough people to manage it. So I basically sunk some money into the company to keep us going until we finally contractually broke terms with that manufacturer and almost had to sue them to get our money. So that was probably, that was 2015 and probably my worst year ever, from a standpoint of not just financially, but
hard decisions.
Keeping the team focused. I've got a salesman out there who works on commission only, and he's not making any money either, because I'm not getting paid, so I can't pay him that was a huge struggle for us. But I took some time. Once we got the pay, I sort of sat down and I looked at it and I said, okay, is this really what I want to be doing long term? Because I was that frustrated with having spent that year. Yeah. Because everything had come so smoothly for us up to that point.
Right.
And I started talking to some business consultants, and I took some business seminars, and I realized that every business goes through that at some point or another. And I really just had to get back to the focus on the company and the why of doing what we do. And that's really 2016, I sort of started refocusing it. And then just last year, 2017, that's when my manufacturer asked me to expand. So, the stuff is coming back in, but it right. For that 18 months or so, when you're really focused on paying the bills and making sure everybody's employed and covering all of that kind of stuff, it's really hard to look big picture. You sort
Absolutely.
of get buried in the yes. trees of the forest.
So that's a great way to put. Yeah, the big picture. It's when you're in it, it's every option is just a closed door. Every time you turn around, it's like I'm being stopped.
Right, because I would see things where I'm like, this would be a great opportunity to expand or to do something new, but you really financially we didn't have the money to do it. Do I take the risk? Do I not? And most of the times I pulled back thinking, well, I can't really financially take that risk right now. So it stunted the growth of the company. We were flat for about 3 years. And we're probably going to hit a record year this year.
Awesome.
But it takes that changing of mindset to look back at, okay, we made it through the difficulty, and here's the worst thing that's going to happen. If that happens again, now I'm prepared to handle it because I know how to deal with it. I know how to work through it. I hadn't had to work through it up to that point, so all of it was a learning process for me, especially as a business owner. You know, I'd never been responsible for having at that point 4 employees that I was paying, and their families are expecting paychecks, and you take on that whole responsibility. You know, now I understand the process to go through to avoid that going down the road. So it's all a learning process. It was not fun.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I said, I said, do I want to continue doing this? And I honestly sat there and I said, I can't imagine doing anything else. You know, I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. And I love working for myself. You know, I could not picture myself ever going back to the corporate world again, living in a box, working in a box, you know, thinking in a box, you know, that kind of stuff, not having flexibility to do what needed to be done to accommodate the customer. So I said, well, it's where I'm at. I have to make this work. I have to figure it out.
Absolutely. And the fact that you even went out and found somebody to help you get through it.
Yes.
You know, sometimes it's easy just to sit in that fetal position and, you know, and look, you know, woe is me, and, you know, oh, this will never turn around. But I mean, being in the middle of it and then going out and finding a business coach or finding someone who can, you know, like you said, change that mindset, get back to the why, you know, and your why is very clear.
Yes.
You know, and well, it was clear, but I would imagine it's even more. Have you fine-tuned it even more since going through that?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And I'm, you know, working. I love that when I asked my team this phrase, they all came up with sort of the same kind of thing. So I take from that we are all working towards the same goal, and it's not one of them put, you know, that the final end goal was to make money or to earn commissions, or it was all about servicing the customer and meeting their needs and making their job and their life better. And that's really where I want our company to be. So.
And now you got people asking you to come over here in my area.
Yeah, we need some help up here. We can't find somebody like you in Minneapolis. I'm like, okay.
So now let's talk a little bit about the future. I mean, you talked about traveling. So we talked about the kids being 12 months old. Okay, so now, because we just did senior pictures, you know, they're just about to be empty nesters.
Yes.
Right? And now you're also being asked to travel even more. Is that on the horizon? Is that going to free you up to expand the business more? Or are you going to kind of shift some things?
It definitely, when my manufacturer asked me to expand up north, I definitely felt like it was a time that I could do it. My kids had their driver's license at that point. They were starting to become more independent. They were managing a lot of their own stuff. A year prior to that, I was carpooling them. I was, you know, getting them to every activity, you know, so traveling was really hard for me to do. Now, they're pretty independent. And, you know, when my husband travels, I'm home. And when I travel, he's home. So there's always one parent around, but neither of us has to carry the burden of all of the carpooling and the logistics and all that kind of stuff. They manage their own schedule.
That's a huge
goodness.
compliment to your kids.
So it allowed me to consider making that expansion, and then looking at it further. All right, if I'm going to start looking at putting a team up there, a salesperson, possibly an inside support person, the ideal situation would be that then I'm not traveling up there as much because I have a team up there that's running things, preferably as well as my team here does.
Right.
But I'm also looking at expanding into some other neighboring territories probably in 3 to 5 years. So, you know, when most people my age are starting to think about retirement, I'm thinking, I got 3 to 5 more years and I want to expand again. So I'm sort of going the opposite direction, and a lot of my friends are looking at me like I've lost my mind. But once my kids are out of the house, it is really what I love to do, and my husband has a great job, and he can travel around my schedule and vice versa. It is pretty much the way we were before children. We both traveled for a living, and we would literally meet someplace in the middle. Like, hey, where are you going to be next week? Oh, I'm going to be here. Why don't we meet in San Francisco? Let's hit Napa Valley. Or why don't we meet in Vegas? Or why don't we meet in, Maryland and, go to the coast or whatever.
That keeps it interesting.
Yes, yeah.
Fun
So,
is that?
I'm like, yeah, we could get back to that now, once the kids are in college. Not that I could afford that once they're in college, but, it's a nice pipe dream.
But it sounded so pretty, Cathy. It really did. I could picture it. Well, that's awesome. So looking for some expansion soon, and then even more in the 3 to 5 years, and it's that big picture, and
Yes.
be able to see that big picture, because I know as business owners sometimes we just tend to stare at the bark of that tree right in front of us.
Right.
And
And sometimes it's so easy to get mired down in the chaos of being a business owner, operating a business. It's really hard to sometimes step outside of that and look at the big picture. And that's really where I valued having my life coach. So, he keeps me focused on not only my business, but my health. And, because you can't have the energy to do all of this if you're not taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
In the long run. So, I've seen significant improvements in my health in the last 2 years working with him, just staying focused on eating healthy and moving. And, I'm getting a knee replacement in November so that I can be even more physically active and do that kind of stuff. Get rid of that old injury once and for all.
It's all interwoven into your daily life.
Yes.
Because that's part of being an entrepreneur. It's because we're also passion driven.
Yes.
And doing what we love, and everybody has their why. And like you said, I can't see myself doing anything else. It is a part of you. So I think that's so healthy to look at it all encompassing. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I thank you so much for you. My mind is blown. It's like I'm picturing all these different things, but I love how every opportunity is an option to grow.
Yes.
Or to stagnate. And you just have to look at it and use all of your knowledge and your gut too, right? I mean, that's so. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, it's like, oh, my gut's telling me maybe not, but but I love that it's been guiding your journey, and because it's so important to look at every opportunity.
Yeah.
And don't say no so quick, right?
Right.
Don't always say yes.
Right. Sometimes you have to look at it and say, why is that opportunity being presented to me? Is it something that I should really seriously consider? And is it going to be easy? Most times the things that are worth it are not easy. So sometimes you have to take that leap and just say, okay, this is going to be difficult, but I can see where it's going to get me and what it's going to do for us. So you take the chance, and there's no guarantee that you're going to make money on that. There's no guarantee that it's going to do what you think it's going to do for the company. You just have to take that jump and make it work. And if it's not working, discard it and move on. Do something else.
I love it. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Cathy. I'm going to leave it there because that is some of the best advice that anybody can hear when they're becoming an entrepreneur. So thank you so much, Cathy Hartigan with Hartigan Power Equipment.
Thank you.